Hey guys, this is Pedro from Cinemilled, and I wanted to do a quick video before I do the other video of my arm extensions, explaining why we're doing arm extensions. And because, as some of you know, DJI has talked about longer arms. If you notice on the inside of your arm, it says A. They have released even price lists to dealers about B and C arms, which are different lengths. And I wanted to get into why the arm extensions is a much better solution to the problem, why the arm extensions is a cheaper solution and smarter solution, and why what's involved with the DJI longer arms if they go ahead and release them the way that I have seen them. So let's go into explaining what I just talked about. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the longer arms that DJI is proposing to release and what's involved with those arms. So basically, they're talking about replacing from here on forward, from this whole section here, right? Full-on arm sections. So if they sold you just the arms, the big problem that I see, and I've discussed with them and they've talked to me about, is the fact that you have to disconnect the motor from the arm to replace the arm. So that's the biggest hurdle. So what's the big problem with that, right? It sounds simple, but it's actually quite difficult. So as you see here, there's a cap, right? So the first step, you would just take these 3 screws off. Once you pop the cap off, there's a circuit board in there, and there's this cable that runs down the arm that runs inside of here. There's a small plug, right? A small little plug that plugs into the circuit board. At the factory, when they're assembling this, they put a little bit of silicone glue, and then they put the cap on. And what happens is the silicone glue gets squished, and so it gets spread around the connector so that the connector doesn't back out, which is what they were trying, that was their intention. But then it also gets stuck onto the cap. So what happens is if you just try to pry the cap off, you may rip the connector off the circuit board or break the circuit board. So that's the first danger zone of installing DJI long arms if they ever sell them to the public. The second part is you then have to lift the board off of this mount so that you can then disconnect the cable. And there's still a little bit of glue, and when I started pulling up on the board, the board started to bend and it didn't want to release. So I can see people breaking or cracking their boards and potentially ruining their Ronins as they're trying to do that. So once you have the board loose, you still have to very carefully pry the connector off, remove all the silicone glue that's around it, and carefully pry that connector off. So once the connector's off, you're still not done yet. So they use a 6-axis CNC machine. So this is like a compound curve inside of this arm, and they have very small little openings, and the connector is rectangular. So what you actually have to do is you have to turn the connector sideways and start to carefully fish it through these angles. And invariably what happened, and some beta testers did, is as they were doing that, they ripped the end off the connector. And this is like a little multi-pin, very small connections. So that's yet another step or phase where you can damage your Ronin and make it inoperable. So once you get that out, then these two disconnect, and you take the 4 bolts off the back, and you can put on the longer DJI arms. So that just takes care of, and then essentially you have to do the same thing on this side and fish the cable through, and it's very complicated. And it's complicated enough to the point where at the moment, it's not official, but what I heard is if they do release the longer arms, what they're going to do is they're going to have you send your Ronin in to Pro Support for them to get installed on there. So where does that leave you? That leaves you without a Ronin for a week or more, and also it leaves you with a long arm Ronin. And if you have a short build or you have a DSLR one day, it doesn't help you at all to have a really long-armed Ronin. You only use a long-armed Ronin if you need it. So then you're stuck. So this is why our solution with the arm extensions is really, in our view, the best solution, because you can easily go back and forth between a long arm setup and the stock length. It just, just take the bolts off, put this thing on here, put the bolts in, extend the cable out, and, then hide the cable back in here, and you're good to go. And we're going to go into that in another tutorial you can watch about how to install the arm extensions. But basically, so the moral of the story is DJI long arms that you've heard about require an extensive install that is semi-permanent. It's not something you want to be doing very often. And with these guys, you can go on and off as much as you want. Easily within 10 minutes, you can put these on and take them off. The other note that I have is that if you lengthen the bottom arms, you kind of need to lengthen the top arms. Of course, you can just you can slide this back. But eventually you're going to run out of room to slide it back. So to run something like a really long arm setup, you really need to extend this out. And DJI hasn't mentioned that they were going to sell that. So the other fix is just to put more weight back here. You could put an MDR, some sort of transmitter, and add weight to the back, and this lets you slide back that way. So that is the other thing, is that they haven't talked about anything to address the fact that you need to lengthen this top arm. So with our short extensions, you can, with a lot of setups, you'll be okay this far back, and especially if you add a little bit of weight towards the back. But we will be releasing a drop-down extension as well. You can cut that.
So I just wanted to go over some of the main disadvantages that I laid out in this video, just to make it very clear. Basically, just how difficult the install is, and we know this is true because some of the beta testers managed to still damage some components as they were trying to install the arms. It's not an easy process, and you have to do it very carefully and very calmly and take your time with it. And even so, you may still cause some damage. So, this is nothing you could do on set, for example, when somebody's rushing you. And our arm extensions, you can swap back and forth in like 10 minutes. It's easily something you can do on set, in between setups even. So, and then the last thing is this rumor that they might have you actually send your Ronin in to get the arms installed so that they can install it, so they're not inundated with people installing the arms and having problems. So that's not an official, that's just the rumor I'm hearing of how they're going to deal with this install situation. So, last of which, I heard how much their arms are going to be, and I believe ours are definitely cheaper, less expensive. So that's always a good reason. But basically, the most important thing is the ease of changing your Ronin back and forth when using arm extensions rather than replacing the whole arm. So I hope this clears up any questions everybody had, or any misinformation that was out there about swapping over arms, or you just simply didn't know that it's a complicated deal. So make sure to check out our other video. We're going to go into actually installing and a lot more detail about what it takes to, or what's involved with balancing, and little tips and tricks and gotchas on using longer arms. So check that video out, and our arm extensions are available for purchase on our website. They are $3.99, and really expands what you can do with your Ronin, the kind of cameras you could put on there, matte box lenses, all this great stuff. So check out the next video, the video about the arm extensions, and you'll get the full picture of all that you can do now with the arm extensions.